Bush School. Mother Nature welcomes you. Join us in a world that's new. Open up your eyes. Bush School. Animals in camouflage. How they breed and feed and thrive. Learn how they survive. Discover the secrets of wildlife. Discover the way to be bush-wise. Bush School.
We can exist for 3 weeks without food, 3 minutes without air, and 3 days without water. In fact, 79% of our body is made up of fluid. Like our veins transport the blood through our bodies, so the river transports the water across the continents. Wherever there is water, there is life. The river gives life to millions of birds and insects, plants, fish and animals. Now today, we're going to have a look at how these complex ecosystems work.
High in the mountains and hills of Africa, melting snow and rain gives rise to springs and streams. The streams unite to become rivers, rivers that bring moisture to the dry plains below. Some rivers are insignificant with little water in them. Others join and rejoin until they become large and famous, listed among the world's natural wonders. But whatever their size or fame, here on the dry continent of Africa, all rivers are important. And to the animals that live along their length, their existence is a matter of life or death. Rivers are particularly important in those parts where there's a long dry season. As the pans and water holes begin to dry up, the animals start to drift towards the river. Others, like this pride of lions, have established a permanent territory on the river banks. Still others, like the Sykes monkey, might never visit the river, yet they depend on it to keep the dense riverine forest alive. The crocodile and hippopotamus live most of their lives in the river itself, although both will come out to bask on the banks. Hippos move in the water by walking or running on the river bed, and the passage of their great bodies stirs up the silt and sediment so that the current can carry it away. In this way, they help to keep the water clear. Fish are part of the river's food chain. They feed on plants and insects, and they in turn are food for the many birds that hunt along its banks. Some birds use the river as a sanctuary where they can raise a family. The hippos also help shape the river. Here in Africa, wet follows dry, and most of the rivers come down in flood every year. The cutting action of the flood water leaves behind steep banks that make it difficult for thirsty animals to reach the water. The elephants help to break down the steep banks, but it is the hippo that does the most. Hippos are grazers. They feed at night along the river's verges. So every afternoon, they leave the water in search of food. The paths they carve out create access to the river. They also act as drains to guide storm water into the river. The river is also a source of drinking water for the many animals that live nearby. Large or small, predator and prey, they all come to drink. They arrive singly or in herds, according to their habits. One thing they all have in common is their fear of the crocodiles. Except for the elephants. No crocodile would dare to tackle them. The greatest danger comes when animals have to cross the river. The crocodiles lie waiting. The wily baboon hardly wets his feet. Even the lion enters the water warily. To the migrating herds, the river is a hazard that they must face. If the water is low and the zebra do not have to swim, they'll probably all cross safely. But if there's been rain and the river is in flood, the price that must be paid to cross is high. The vulture and the crocodile recycle nature's resources, and at the same time help to keep the river clean. The vegetation growing in the fertile silt of the river's verges is lush and rich. The river ecosystem is very productive. It supports many creatures. But like so many of nature's systems, man is making increasing and often impossible demands on it. There are places in Africa where the rivers no longer flow.
It's a sad fact in the world today that only 2% of the water is drinkable. And that's because man uses the river as a dumping ground for his waste, for his litter, and for his factory waste. Rivers are vital life support systems. We have to ensure that they are protected because a healthy river promotes a healthy planet.
Will you leave us a world where no rhinos run? Will you leave us a world where no whales swim? Will you leave us a world that is scorched by the sun? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? Will you leave us a world where the forests are gone? Will you leave us a world where no rivers run? Will you leave us a world with 10 billion strong? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? You can make it a world where the rivers flow clean and wildlife runs free on an earth that is green. Let them know that you care. Be alive, be aware, in a world that together we share. This kind of world, what kind of world? Your kind of world, our kind of world. Bush School, Mother Nature welcomes you. Join us in a world that's new. Open up your eyes. Bush School. Animals in camouflage. How they breed and feed and thrive. Learn how they survive. Discover the secrets of wildlife. Discover the way to be bush-wise. Bush School.
Who can tell me what a hippo eats?
They eat fish? No, they eat grass.
That's right, it's grass. Even though whenever we see the hippo, he's in water, so we'd immediately assume he eats fish, but he doesn't. He eats grass. Now, when does he get to graze?
Hippo feed at night.
That's right, he eats at night when the other grazers are inactive, so he eliminates his competition. Also, when the sun is down, so he doesn't damage his sensitive skin. Come on, let's go down to the river and we'll see if we can see hippo.
The English name for hippopotamus comes from the Greek, meaning river horse. It is one of the most successful large mammals in Africa, inhabiting nearly all lakes and rivers. The hippopotamus is a highly social animal. A group, or pod as it is called, is made up of several females and their young. The pod is controlled by a dominant bull who has gained his position by combat. At the slightest sign of danger, hippos will take to the safety of the water.
Look, look, hippo, hippo!
They are completely aquatic and spend most of the day partly submerged in the water, with just eyes, ears and nose showing above the waterline.
Two interesting diagrams we've got here. Let's start at the top one. See how short the hippo's legs are in relation to the incredible bulk and size of his body. Now, a big hippo bull can sometimes weigh up to 3,200 kilograms. That's an incredible weight to be supported by these little short legs. That's perhaps why he spends so much of the day in the water. The design of the hippo is really ingenious. We can see it beautifully demonstrated here. At the tilt, the slightest tilt of his head, he can have his nostril for his sense of smell. He can have his eye for his sense of sight, and his ear just pop up out of the level of the water. So he can see, he can hear and smell approaching danger.
Hippos spread their dung as part of their territorial behavior. This is important in the ecology of the rivers and lakes, in that it adds nutrients to the water. There is even a species of fish adapted to take advantage of it. Hippos are very aggressive when it comes to defending their territories. People often think the hippo is yawning, when in fact it is displaying its weapons to any rivals. Hippo are one of the few animals that fight so viciously amongst themselves that one may die. The large jaws, armed with tusk-like canines, can inflict vicious wounds. Most adult bulls bear testimony to fighting. This bull died after a fight, and its mate defended it against the crocodiles for several days. Eventually, hunger drove it to leave the river in search of food, and only then could the crocodiles perform their scavenging role.
Oh, look! Hippo skull! Hold on. Gee whiz.
What is it, kids?
Hippo skull.
What a good opportunity.
Whoa, these are big, huh?
See here, this is interesting. This is his tooth or his tusk. Now look how big this is. The bigger and the older the bull, the bigger these tusks become, right? They use these tusks during territorial fights.
This is probably quite an old why they make such a noise.
Yes, they are very territorial and they'll fight often to the death. Okay, let's bring the upper jaw and place it on top of the lower one. Bring it round the side. It's quite heavy.
Yes, put it there, boy.
There you go. Try and fit it in.
Hippos bask on sandbanks, but they have very sensitive skin, which exudes a reddish fluid known as blood sweat, which protects it from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. However, they can only take a limited exposure to the sun and frequently return to the water to cool off. A hippo feeds mainly at night, although it will feed during cool weather along the river banks. Its large mouth swings from side to side, cutting the grass short like a lawnmower. Here, a hippopotamus is returning from a night's grazing, just as the zebra and wildebeest are starting to feed. In this way, the maximum use is made of the productive riverside vegetation. They create paths to and from the river, which provides access for other animals and allows rainwater to flow into the river. In the water as well, they walk on the river bed, keeping waterways open and preventing silting. Hippos have large lungs, which allow them to stay underwater for about 5 minutes. Hippo calves are born on land or in shallow water. The calf cannot float and is raised to the surface by its mother. The baby can walk and swim within a few minutes of birth. As the mother enters deeper water, the calf will ride on its mother's back and suckle underwater.
So what has nature taught us today through our studying of the hippo? It's taught us how cleverly the hippo avoids its competitors. Now, there's always a lesson for us to learn from nature. We must find our own little time and place so that we can avoid competitors and be successful.
Will you leave us a world where no rhinos run? Will you leave us a world where no whales swim? Will you leave us a world that is scorched by the sun? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? Will you leave us a world where the forests are gone? Will you leave us a world where no rivers run? Will you leave us a world with 10 billion strong? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? You can make it a world where the rivers flow clean and wildlife runs free on an earth that is green. Let them know that you care. Be alive, be aware, in a world that together we share. This kind of world, what kind of world? Your kind of world, our kind of world. Bush School. Join us in a world that's new. Open up your eyes. Bush School. Animals in camouflage. How they breed and feed and thrive. Learn how they survive. Discover the secrets of wildlife. Discover the way to be bush-wise. Bush School.
Which reptile plays the part of both hunter and scavenger in the lakes and the rivers of Africa?
The crocodile.
Yes, and now how long has the crocodile survived on this earth?
About 1,000 years.
No, TD. In fact, it's much, much longer than that. It's over 100 million years. It was here the same time the dinosaur was, and it has not changed its design since that time. Come on, let's go to the river. Let's go crocodile hunting.
Yeah.
The Nile crocodile is Africa's largest reptile. It can grow to over 6 meters and weigh more than 1,000 kilograms. It is also among the most dangerous animals in Africa, feared by most of the creatures who come to the river to drink. Even the lion is very wary of the crocodile. The crocodile family consists of 22 species, including the alligator and the caiman, and is found all over the world. Most of them live in the warm tropical and subtropical regions. On land, crocodiles usually slide along on their bellies, but they can also lift their bodies clear of the ground and walk or run with their legs extended.
Oh, look over there, kids. There's a big croc on the sandbank over there.
Crocodiles are poikilothermic. This means that they rely on heat from external sources to raise their body temperature. This is why you see them basking in the sun, often with their jaws open. In this position, the breeze cools the buccal membrane and so helps to regulate the body temperature. Now, look carefully at the back of the mouth. You will see that there's a valve which keeps the water out of its lungs. The crocodile is a lie-and-wait predator. When it sees the prey come to drink or to cross the river, it slips quietly into the water. The head is shaped so that with a tiny upward shift of its body, it can bring all its main senses of smell, sight, and hearing into play, without exposing too much of itself above water. In this way, it can creep up on its prey without being seen. The crocodile is perfectly adapted for life in the water. The tail, moving from side to side, provides the propulsion. By flaring its hind feet, which are webbed, the crocodile can turn left or right, and by extending both feet, it can brake. A crocodile can remain submerged for up to an hour. A nictitating membrane protects the eyes, but allows it to see underwater. Nasal muscles close off the nostrils. Once the prey is within reach, the croc will lunge for a grip. Zebras are large, and they have a powerful kick. They're difficult prey for the crocodiles. Gazelles, on the other hand, are an ideal size.
The Nile crocodile has 60 interlocking teeth. This here is the 4th lower tooth that often sticks out of the mouth. The teeth are conical in shape and they replace themselves right the way through the course of the crocodile's life. Now, if we compare this to the North American alligator, firstly, the 4th conical shaped tooth on the lower jaw does not stick out. And secondly, if you have a look at the head shape, it is a lot more oval compared to the Nile crocodile, which has a very definite indentation just around the snout.
The crocodiles usually kill their prey by drowning, so their teeth interlock to grip, but they are not designed to cut or crush as are those of the lion or hyena. So the crocodile must swallow its food in great chunks. Often a number of crocodiles converge on a carcass. It is during this time that crocodiles spin their bodies and flick their powerful heads from side to side, tearing off manageable pieces of meat. To swallow, they raise their heads clear of the water and allow gravity to drop the meat down their gullets. Their digestive juices are so strong they can dissolve hooves, bones, and even horns. As so often happens in nature, a kill feeds a number of creatures. The scavenging barbel move amongst the feeding crocs, taking the scraps. The crocodiles play an important role in keeping the rivers clean. When this zebra died on the river bank, the crocodiles soon disposed of it. Notice how they begin by feeding on softer portions of the body. Courtship amongst the crocodiles is an elaborate affair, and mating occurs in the river.
She usually makes and creates the nest up on a sandy bank, just up from the river, just above the high water mark. She digs it into the sand with her back legs, creating a boot-like shape nest of about 30 centimeters deep. And it's into this nest that she lays approximately 60 eggs. Now this is where it gets interesting. The sex of the little crocodiles is determined by temperature. The cooler ones, the females, between the temperature of 26 and 30 degrees, lay on the bottom of the nest, where the males, the temperature of between 31 and 34 degrees, lay on the top. Now they stay and incubate in the nest for about 90 days. It's then that they start to hatch out of the egg. And they have a little egg tooth which enables them to crack the shell and pop their heads out. It's at this stage that they start to make a little cheeping noise, and that alerts the mother. And she puts them into the pouch just under her chin, otherwise known as the gula pouch. Then she takes them down to the river and lets them go. At this stage, the little crocs are on their own.
The crocodile is a species that plays a critical role as predator and scavenger in the lakes, estuaries, and rivers of Africa.
Now we have seen how crocodiles have survived over millions of years. In fact, how useful they have become to man. Man has learned to farm crocodiles commercially for their skins. This means that there are numerous crocodiles held in captivity if we ever needed to restock our rivers and lakes. Now this is a perfect example of how an animal has become useful to the human being, and by so doing has ensured its own survival.
Will you leave us a world where no rhinos run? Will you leave us a world where no whales swim? Will you leave us a world that is scorched by the sun? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? Will you leave us a world where the forests are gone? Will you leave us a world where no rivers run? Will you leave us a world with 10 billion strong? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? You can make it a world where the rivers flow clean and wildlife runs free on an earth that is green. Let them know that you care. Be alive, be aware, in a world that together we share. This kind of world, what kind of world? Your kind of world, our kind of world. Bush School, Mother Nature welcomes choose you. Join us in a world that's new. Open up your eyes. Bush School. Animals in camouflage. How they breed and feed and thrive. Learn how they survive. Discover the secrets of wildlife. Discover the way to be bush-wise. Bush School.
Now, who of you can tell me what an amphibian is?
Shani, I think it's a fish.
No, not quite right, Dee.
No, it's a frog.
Good. That's exactly right. Now, the word amphibia means equal life. Now, these animals are comfortable on both land and in the water. Today, we're really lucky to have Jackie with us, who's going to tell us a little bit more about frogs.
Morning, everybody.
Hi, Jackie.
In the animal kingdom, we get 5 classes. First of all, we get mammals, we get birds, we get reptiles, we get insects, and we get amphibians. Today, we are going to talk on amphibians. Amphibians consist mainly of toads and frogs.
Jackie, what's the difference between a toad and a frog?
There are 3 main differences between toads and frogs. The first difference is toads lay their eggs in a jelly-like string, whereas frogs lay their eggs in a mass or a cluster. The second difference is that the sound, the call that the toad makes, it's more raucous. The frog actually makes quite a melodious sound. It actually sounds like a bird sometimes. The third difference is maturity. You find frogs mature within 3 months, whereas toads become mature in 2 years. That's when they are able to mate.
Jackie, when there's a drought and there's no water, what do frogs do?
The frogs and toads, they actually find holes in the ground, logs, stones, anything to crawl under. What is incredible is that frogs and toads actually stop breathing. And instead of using their lungs, they actually breathe through their skin. And this is how they survive the drought.
Jackie, what do frogs eat?
Tadpoles feed on vegetable matter, and when they grow into frogs, they eat insects.
A frog catches insects with its tongue. But unlike mammals, the tongue is not attached at the back of the throat. Instead, it is fixed to the front of the mouth, so that it can be flipped forward to scoop up the prey. Frogs communicate by sound, and a pond on a summer night produces a cacophony of calls. Each frog has its own particular call with which it tries to attract the mate.
Okay, everybody, let's give the call of the painted reed frog and see if we can attract them. Okay, together now. Okay, hold it. Let's see. There is. Oh, we've got one. Look at this. Now, what sort of frog is it?
In the world, there are an estimated 2,500 species of frogs. They are widely distributed from the high mountains to forests and deserts. There are no frogs which are harmful or poisonous to man, and the myth that frogs will give a person warts is completely untrue. The frog's first line of defense is cryptic coloring or camouflage, which makes them difficult to see. Frogs have many enemies. Snakes cannot chew their prey, so frogs, because they can be swallowed whole, form an ideal part of the diet of many of them. This snake was alarmed and disgorged its last meal, a frog. Secretary birds kill frogs by stamping on them with their powerful feet. Most of the water birds will catch frogs. Storks and herons, with their long beaks, are particularly adept at hunting frogs in thick vegetation. Frogs jump to escape their enemies. The red-banded rubber frog exudes a mucus substance from glands in its skin. This is extreme in that it does not jump, it walks or runs instead. The platana, or clawed toad, was once used by doctors as a pregnancy test, and was exported in such quantities that the species was endangered. Fortunately, the platana was reprieved in 1962 when a chemical test was devised.
Here we have the nest of the foam nest frog. You can see the white mass. Now this is secreted by the female frog. She secretes a mucus in which are about 100 to 150 eggs. Now with the help of the male frogs in the pond, they help her to whip up this foam, and then they fertilize the eggs. Inside, the little tadpoles form, and after about 4 or 5 days, because of their weight, gravity pulls the little tadpoles through the light foam into the water. Now, the foam is white because it reflects heat. See, and that helps keep the little tadpoles cool by day. And it's fluffed up with little air particles in between to keep them warm by night. Now, often you'll get a really big white foam meringue sort of mass, and that is when numerous of couples of frogs, the males and the females together, communally lay their eggs. Boy, just see if we can find any tadpoles in there. Or have they already dropped through, do you think? Oh, there are.
There's some eggs.
Take a little bit of the foam and pass it on down to the others to see. There you go, look. See the little eggs? Pass it down. The little white things that eventually turn into tadpoles because of gravity, because of their weight, 4 or 5 days after they've been fertilized, they drop through and into the water. It hasn't been proven as yet, but some people suspect that this white foamy mass has a scent to it that keeps birds, etc., at bay, because they always seem to be intact.
Frogs are different from both mammals and reptiles in that they have a tadpole stage in between the egg and the adult.
Tadpoles, which we all know are baby frogs, have gills and swim like the water to live on the land.
Frogs hunt by sight, so they have well-developed eyes. One peculiarity is that they only seem to be able to see things that move, and an insect that keeps dead still is ignored. A frog's breathing is different from ours because they do not have a diaphragm, so air has to be pumped into the lungs by the pulsing of the throat. They swim well. Propelled by front legs are folded into the body to streamline it and are only used to balance when the frog is lying still in the water. 400 million years ago, the first primitive frogs emerged from the sea. Today, they still play an important part in nature's scheme of things.
This program has clearly shown how frogs prey on insects. Insects like the Anopheles mosquito, which spread malaria. Now, as our rivers silt up and as we drain our valuable wetlands, the habitat of frogs disappear. These insects that have the potential to spread disease have the ability to multiply to pest proportions.
Will you leave us a world where no rhinos run? Will you leave us a world where no whales swim? Will you leave us a world that is scorched by the sun? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? Will you leave us a world where the forests are gone? Will you leave us a world where no rivers run? Will you leave us a world with 10 billion strong? Will you leave us a world? What kind of world? You can make it a world where the rivers flow clean and wildlife runs free on an earth that is green. Let them know that you care. Be alive, be aware, in a world that together we share. This kind of world, what kind of world? Your kind of world, our kind of world.
For your litter, please use the dustbin and not our river. There's a solution to pollution. Be responsible for your own litter. Our future is tomorrow's world. Nampak asks you, please, do not litter.